Hello, everyone. My name is David Green. I am the Partner Engagement Manager here at Harmonize. We're going to be going through several different trainings today. We're going to be talking about Harmonize discussions, Harmonize social reading, and Harmonize AI resilient assignments. Um, the, the the overview that I'm going to be taking is kind of breaking this up so we can kind of get a rest period in between each one. You can take your breath. I do encourage you to use the chat to ask any questions. If you have anything that comes up throughout, Tara, if you would like to, maybe if you see something you want to interrupt me, come in and be like, hey, we got this question. If I don't see it, that'd be great. This will be recorded, and should be able to get the recording out probably tomorrow. To be honest with you, just Zoom always takes a while to process the video, and then by the time I get it and then get it over to Tara, probably tomorrow morning. So, um, uh, if you would like, I encourage you to also, if again, if this is the way you learn, to pull up Canvas and walk along with me as I'm going through some of these steps, especially the setup process. So if you want to do that, you can follow along, and I try to slow down whenever I go into those setup process steps. And that way, if you have questions, you'll be able to ask those right away. Hey, I'm not seeing this, or I don't understand how this is working. Can you repeat that? And hopefully, we can get you set up. And you can even leave today's training with a couple of different examples set up in your sandbox or your test course or wherever you want to put that. So, um, couple of housekeeping notes before we dive into the specifics. And I'm sure, Tara, you have this probably shared somewhere, but I'll put this in the chat anyway. This is we have a very detailed support site. And if you click on that link that I gave you, it actually takes you to the landing page that is our training page. This is great if you have, like you said, we're going to go over discussions and social reading and assignments. Maybe you're interested in peer review, or maybe you're interested in polling or some other topics. You could find trainings that you can sign up for here. We also do pedagogy-based
Oh,
webinars where I bring in
okay.
different.
I
Um, so these pedagogy
bye.
webinars, they're really good to be able to get more specifics about your subject area. So we have webinars that are based on like math and art and English and nursing and these different webinars. And so instead of it being kind of a catch-all, it goes specifically into that subject area. We also have some really great setup guides in here as well. And if you go to the top, you can click and do a search if you're having any issues. And I'll also point out at the very top, there's a button here that says submit a request. And you can do that and send a note to our support team, and our support team will then be able to get back to you with specifics on that. Um, I also encourage people with our support tickets. If you are using Harmonize and you're like, okay, I like this, but I wish it did X, Y, or Z or something to that effect, let us know that. So use this form to be able to communicate requests you have for Harmonize. We actually track those requests, and that's what we use to guide us. So the more people who request a very similar feature or process or anything like that, that's what guides us to go in that direction to develop and update the system. I'm going to start off with discussions. This is probably the most common starting point that most instructors start with Harmonize. We started out as a company with a focus on making discussions better, and we kind of expanded from there. So we now have 7 tools total that you can choose from to use when you're designing your course. The discussions is, like I said, probably the entry point that a lot of people will start with. We have a lot of features that when we first started were unique to Harmonize. Some of those features have now been adopted by Canvas and other tools out there. Um, but I'll give you a quick overview. of what you would expect to see in a harmonized discussion, how your students might be able to interact in there. We'll look at grading, and then we'll go into setup, and then we'll take pause, and then we'll go into the other tools. And so we'll start with discussions. And actually, I'm going to go to a different spot. I'm going to show you one of my oldie but goodie example that I use for discussions. Um, this is a couple of things I'll note in the beginning is two focuses that Harmonize really looks at, especially with discussions and assignments and things like that. One is, can we make it better experience for the student to be able to interact, specifically around the idea of like multimodal and UDL principles. So letting students express their learning in different ways, instead of it just being text-based. We want to give them that ability to interact with things like video and audio recordings and screen share and images and annotating and all of that. And then the other part of that is we want to make your life better. So we really have a focus on instructors and giving you tools where it makes your life better and easier. And so whether that be through grading or interaction with the students, we're going to try to give you tools that make your life a little better. So in this example that I'm showing right now, this is an example that would be designed around like a human anatomy class. Don't focus on the subject matter. I want you to focus more on the features here. And I'll try to interject some examples that I've heard from other instructors in different subject areas. If anybody wants to put in the chat, just what subject area you teach, and if I have examples, I can always bring those up. So starting off, you'll see at the very beginning or the very top, one of the differences you're going to see is we have what we call milestones. And so these milestones, another way that a lot of people communicate this is multi-due dates. And so your students are going to come in and they're going to see, okay, I have one post due for this discussion by this date, and then I have 2 comments due by this date. From a grading perspective, a lot of instructors will say, I put those in my instructions, but then to actually grade and know whether or not the student actually did the post on time and did the comments on time, you got to go and look through the discussion board, and that's a pain. So we actually track that for you, and so that you will know, we'll tell you whether the student did that on time. You can even put like word count minimums with that and other criteria, so that they have those milestones and they know when to do those. We do integrate with both the Canvas calendar and the Canvas to-do list, and so that will show up for the students to know that they need to go in and do those tasks, whether that's a post or the comments. I'd like to point out that this is on the instructor view. On the instructor view, you'll see these green lines underneath. This tells you, as the instructor, the percentage of the students who have actually completed this part of the task. If this was in student view, the student would see whether or not, if it was just one post requirement, it'd either be blank or fully green, or it could be half green because they only did one comment. So it gives you a visual cue of how far along your entire class is. Now, when you come in, you've heard that students, that multiple deadline milestones for discussion boards is very confusing for them, deadline overload. That could be something the students here. We try to, like I said, we integrate with the Canvas to-do list. And so a lot of students kind of go by that, and they'll know when to go in. I've not really heard any students complain that it's an overload. But it is different than what they're used to. So they've taken other classes where they're not using milestones. That might be a big change for them. We do not have the ability right now, Chris, to do a window. So you couldn't say do the post sometime between Thursday and Friday, and then the comments sometime between Saturday and Sunday. We don't have that as an option. I can show you how that setup is when we go into the setup piece. So when you come in as the instructor, the instructions are going to be hidden from you because, of course, you wrote them. You don't need to see them. The students will have this laid out for them, and then they have the option to minimize that. Um, you can see here that also you have the ability to be more multimodal. So with your instructions, you don't have to just write, hey, let's discuss the contents of chapter 8 in this week's, reading. You can actually come in here and include images. You could include a link to a YouTube video. The YouTube videos, when you put a link in, it will play right within the screen, which is something I've heard instructors say they really like. Um, you can include a poll if you would like to. Of course, you can do your text and talk about what topic they're going to talk about and any minimum word counts that you want to put in there. And you can also do videos or screen shares. The the I've heard some instructors say they'll put their lecture videos or a slideshow presentation in, but typically what I hear more often is this is a place where an instructor can just come in and record a quick video and say, "Hey, you know, this is your professor and welcome to week 3. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Um, Go team, whoever those local teams may be, make it more personal and let it be a way for your students, especially in online learning, to be able to see your face, hear your voice, and make kind of a little bit more of a personal connection with you so that it's not always, the hidden instructor in the sky, that type of mentality. We also do closed captioning and uh, on all the videos. Tara, are you guys signed up for the audio descriptions?
Ooh, I believe so.
Okay. For instructor videos, um, you will have audio descriptions added to your videos so that if any seeing impaired students need that, it'll be added for you. This helps with accessibility guidelines. And so you do have the ability also to go in and see its transcript, and you can actually edit those transcripts right within the right within the frame when you're setting this up. The student will also see in the instructions, if you include a harmonized rubric, you can actually attach a rubric that's in Canvas, and then, or you can let us help you build a rubric. Those rubrics will be sent to Canvas as well for your Canvas rubrics, but you can actually create either one of those. I'm going to hide those instructions now. And this is where we really get different from the harmonized discussion and what you're going to see within places like Canvas or other tools you might have worked with in the past. I will show you in just a second, John, how you're going to add harmonize. You're not going to add it as uh, you're probably trying to add it as a link, and you can't do it that way. I'll show you exactly where to add that here in just a moment. So the layout here, what I've heard other people say is it looks and feels more like an Instagram or Pinterest type of social media layout. Uh, the Canvas discussions to me look more like a Reddit discussion board, very 90s based, very linear and text heavy, and you can get lost, is the way I feel. Somebody's replying to someone else's comment, and it kind of gets thrown into the thread, and you kind of lose who's talking to who. Here, what you're going to see is this card layout. So every student's post is a card, and then all of the comments related to that post is going to be within that card when you click on it. It also gives a nice visual. So if the students include any art, so any images, if they include a video, we'll take a thumbnail of the video, and we'll put that in as a thumbnail into the page. If they don't include any multimedia, we'll just take their profile pictures from Canvas and use that as the thumbnail. We also give you a quick overview on the card so you can see this is Laverne. She was the one that did this post. She gave it a title, and then you can see here that she's gotten 12 comments. And you'll also see how many reactions she has. And reactions, just like social media, this is a thumbs up type of reaction. This is something the students can do. It's something that you can do. And I've heard a lot of instructors say they love to utilize the reactions, especially in the grading interface. And I'll show you that. So I'm going to click here on Laverne's post. And you'll probably notice right away another key difference that you don't get inside of Canvas discussions is we actually integrate with Turnitin. So you can actually use Turnitin in your discussions. There is a 30 word count minimum for the plagiarism tool to work, and the plagiarism score is student facing. So they will see if they get a score, a plagiarism score right here whenever they're looking at their work once they submit it. If you and I should have looked this up, Tara. I'm sorry, I keep asking you questions. You guys have the AI detection with Turnitin? I know you have Turnitin, but I don't know about the AI detection.
I believe so. I know that we
Okay.
have like the extra accessibility package on top of Harmonize.
Okay. It is so when you click on this badge here as the instructor, it will open up that typical report you're used to seeing within Turnitin. And if you guys have the AI detection, it will show an AI detection score here on the side. Now, this is not student facing, so the student will not see that score. Only you as the instructor would see that. Um, and Turnitin hides that. That's not something we can decide to do or not do. That's the way Turnitin set it up. And they also, Turnitin has a requirement of 300 words for the AI detection to work. So 30 words for plagiarism, 300 for AI detection.
You want to take this one? Are you sure?
So I can see here, Laverne, she's
Next year को दूसरा
updated her
तो sharing
post.
में से
She gave a quick overview of her thoughts. And she also included this image, right? And so she has this image here, and she's decided, okay, I'm going to express myself in some of the things that I've learned through an image. And I can now come in here and give her that reaction. So I can say, oh, okay. Oh, I can, well, it's not giving me the reaction. Let me refresh. There's little phrases attached. There's, I think, 6 different reactions that you can use within Harmonize. Each one's going to have a little phrase. It's great for instructors to use those because it's going to give you the ability to kind of like, oh, good point or great idea. But also, these are the phrases we don't want our students to use as comments, right? So hopefully this will encourage the students, if they're just going to say, I agree, they can just do the thumbs up reaction and do that instead. I keep scrolling. I see Nick here. He's done a comment. Alan, the way he decided to interact with Laverne is instead of writing a comment, he came up here and clicked on this respond by drawing. And if I scroll down here, I can see this is where he did some annotations on top of the image. So if you're teaching art, if you're teaching graphic design, you can imagine, students sharing different projects they may be working on or different examples they're seeing, and then being able to have other students come in and point out different aspects on top of those images. A great tool to use. I decided when I'm replying to Laverne, I didn't want to type or annotate her image. I wanted to do a video, and so I wanted to record myself talking, and so that's what I did. And I gave a response. I can see the transcript right here. If I needed to see audio descriptions, I can turn that on here. But then also maybe Laverne came back in and instead of replying to my post with text, she said, I'm going to come in here to your video and I'm going to annotate on top of your video, timestamp annotations. So I think I saw a couple people come through with saying they taught courses like communication or ESL or foreign languages. You can imagine, hey, I want you to speak in a foreign language, or I want you to sign, or I want you to speak in English, whatever that may be, or give a speech, or give some type of communication, and actually going in and giving feedback right on the video and being able to point out where they may have done really well or where they might need to do some improvements. If I keep scrolling here, I'm going to come down. Every time I do this, I always say I got to delete some of these examples. Here's a screen share. So one of the nice things about our screen share feature in Harmonize is the students don't just have to record their slideshow, which is what a lot of tools will do. Okay, record your slideshow, talk over it, and then you can share that. Here, it's whatever screen you want to capture. So I've seen um, instructors use this to be able to say, okay, we're going to go in and we're going to, I want you to share your research. Show me where you're looking online for your different, research that you're doing on this project that you're working on. Or I want you to show me exactly how you're designing this graphic that you're working on in a graphic design class, or show me how you're building this art project that you're working on. So there's a lot of different use cases beyond just a slideshow presentation that you could actually have your students capture what they're doing in the moment within the screen. Math is another great one for this because students are working on an equation, and they can go in and show you how they're working through that equation, and now they're getting stumped, and then you're able to come in and give feedback and say, well, right here, this is exactly where you're making your mistake, or hey, you're doing a great job. That's actually what I would have done. If students decide they want to upload in a discussion, maybe a PDF that's a Word document, or a Google Doc. Word. I was like, wait a minute. I know it's not called Word Google Word. It's called something else. Um, but yeah, they can upload that. We'll turn it into a PDF if it's not already a PDF, and then the students can actually annotate on that as well. So they could come in here and actually do highlights right on top of the text and be able to give line item feedback that will show up within the frame of Harmonize. And there's Alex, our instructional designer. She was actually explaining why she made that highlight there. So you can start to see kind of the back and forth that you can have with the students, or the students can have with each other. If I come here to the bottom, I click here for add comment. So I'm going to pretend I'm the instructor right now, and I'm going to come in here and join the conversation. And when I do this, I get this line of different tools, and I call this the row of goodies, because these are all the different ways that you can interact within Harmonize. I could add a text box here, so if I wanted to do that, I could also come in here and click on add a link. So this is where I could add like a YouTube link if that's how I wanted to share some information. I could also record a video, and it's going to use whatever cameras on the device the student is using, or you as the instructor. So here I'm on my MacBook, so it's just using the camera on my MacBook and recording me. Simple to just press start recording, and it'll record, and then it'll do the audio descriptions and the closed captioning. I can also do audio recording or record my screen. The screen record, and I'll show you this real quick just so you can see it. It shows you the options of which you want to share a window, the entire screen, or a tab. So whichever one you want to do, and then you can hit share there, and then it will give you the option once you pull it up. Do you want that floating head? A lot of instructors want to see that, so you can actually see your students' faces as they're speaking. They can actually choose to move that floating head around, and they can actually change the size as well. So especially think communication courses. You can think about really any course. I don't think I saw any technical trade courses come through, but I've actually heard from several instructors who are, one of my favorite use cases is an instructor using peer review in his auto mechanic course and having their students record each other working on car parts and then giving reviews back and forth. So you can kind of think of this is really gets to like practical assessments in a lot of ways. You want to see what your students are actually doing. Do you want them to demonstrate their learning? This gives you that ability to see them be more hands-on. I think I saw, oh yeah. And just to remind everybody, mute yourself. Trying to add the app. Okay, yeah, I'll be giving out the instructions of how to add this here in just a moment. Before I move on, any questions about kind of the overall features and use with Harmonize, if anybody's got any of that, and then we're going to go into grading, and I'm going to show you that. Yes, Lil, you can go ahead and come off mute.
Hi. Yeah, I think I saw somebody put this in the chat, so maybe we're just covering it later about actually getting Harmonize onto your canvas.
Yep. So let me just go ahead and show that. If people are wanting to kind of go ahead and start following along, we can go ahead and show that. Let me go ahead and open up SpeedGrader real quick, and then I'll come back in here. So the way you're going to add Harmonize, and let me go to my playground. I'm going to show you the way I would tell people to do it. So most of you are probably going to be creating within a module. So here's my sandbox. I'm going to go into my sandbox and I'm going to click that plus button right here. And I'm going to add an assignment to my module. Now you might be thinking, David, wait a second. You're adding an assignment, but I'm wanting to do a discussion. Yep, we're going to do an assignment, and that's where you're going to create that. And then you'll give it a name. Seda, did you have a question?
Yes, I have a comment, if you don't mind. I've been using Harmonize, and I love the way you are explaining. The only thing is, can I don't want to be just explain to you. I think it's too advanced for people who doesn't have any experience whatsoever. Maybe if you could show the very basic, which, for example, when you open Canvas, where to go to get harmonized and then start. It's, I don't know if
Yep.
this is a second level, but sounds like a second level of a training. And for people who doesn't know anything, in my opinion, is kind of a too much. But it's my opinion, but I've been working, I've been using, and by myself, I kind of struggle to get what I get. And the way people, the first ones that I help, they ask, how do I get there? Do I have to download? Where is that? Where is that? So we say, it's where the dog paw is. So
Yep.
where do we go? Put in discussion, go to dog paw, put the gun, something very simple. And then this whole amazing thing you were saying, for me, I don't know if this workshop is more advanced, but it's very advanced for a person who never used it, Harmonize. But it's my opinion, please, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to show
yeah.
that right now. What I was trying to do is show you all the options you have, and I was going to say start simple. Start very simple, just kind of create one example and kind of go from there. But let's go ahead and do that. We're going to slow down then, and we're going to walk step by step through setting this up. And so, like I said, we're going to go in and we're going to just add. Let me just go back out here so we start from the very beginning. Just anywhere where you see a module, if you have this in your sandbox, we're just going to click that plus button to add an assignment. We'll keep that at assignment. And then what we're going to do is we'll just Sierra example, right? So we'll just do that. That'll be the name of our assignment. And we're going to add that item. Now, only thing that did was create a blank assignment. That's all you've done so far. So I'm going to scroll here to the bottom of my module. There's that blank assignment that I created. And what I'm going to do is click on that assignment. And I'm going to come up here to the top and I'm going to hit edit. Now, when I come into this edit screen, a lot of you probably, when you create an assignment or anything in Canvas, you use this box. We're going to leave that blank. So you don't have to fill out anything in this box. Where it says points, you can add points here. For this example, you can leave it at 0. You don't have to do anything. I'll put 5 in there. But this is where you're going to attach Harmonize is right here under submission type. Okay. So right here under submission type, we're going to click this drop down and we're going to change it from no submission to external tool. And when you do that, it's going to give you this blank URL box. Now, I'm not asking anyone to memorize a full URL. What you're going to do is click on Find. And when you do that, this box should pop up. And for Sierra College, I'm sure you have a lot of tools in your Canvas, but they should be in alphabetical order. And so if you scroll down to the H's, you'll find Harmonize Assignment. And this is how you're going to attach Harmonize to that assignment. And so we're going to click that. And when you click it, this is where you decide what type of Harmonize assignment do you want. Do you want a discussion? Do you want a peer review? Do you want a social reading? Do you want an individual assignment? Or do you want a poll? Now, all of these are graded. So these are our 5 graded tools. But this is how you're going to turn that Canvas assignment into a Harmonize discussion. And it's going to be right here. And so you click discussion. It then fills out that URL. If for whatever reason this box is checked that says load in a new tab, uncheck that box. And then click select. And if that box is checked here, uncheck that box. I would imagine most schools, they prefer for you to stay within the frame of Canvas. So that's where we want to keep them. So now once you've attached Harmonize as the external tool, scroll down. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to add a due date. Now, this is a discussion. And I've heard from a lot of instructors that when you set up a discussion in Canvas, if you say, I want 1 post and 2 comments, and you want that post to be due by the 28th and then the 2 comments by the 30th, you'll put the 28th as the due date. With Harmonize, what we want you to do is use that date that's everything is done with, including the comments. So we want to go to the 30th. Okay? So if you want your post due by the 28th and your comments by the 30th, use the due date in Canvas as the 30th. What is the benefit of using the Harmonize discussion tool versus the discussion tool in Canvas? Well, you get the multi-due dates, you get the integration with Turnitin, you also get the multimodal aspect. Students are able to use multiple different ways of communication compared to just being able to do text, which is what Canvas discussions typically default to. So now that we have our due date in, we're going to click Save. And when you click Save, it's now going to open up the Harmonize platform.
I have a question, David.
Yes.
So I tried to create a harmonized discussion following the step that you just mentioned. And up to setting the date, the due date and everything, it doesn't take me to this page where I can edit with a wizard template or whatever it is. It doesn't take me there.
You're not seeing the setup wizard right here.
Yeah, no, and I've tried to create 3 harmonized discussions, starting from assignment, creating assignment, all the steps that you previously mentioned. I tried to do, still it doesn't take me to this, where I can edit it.
And you're able to attach Harmonize as external tool.
I get to the link.
Okay.
And to the link, I go to Harmonize discussions, and then I go and choose discussion. When you have the 5 options, I choose it, and then I create it. I put the due date, and I save it. And from there, when I go to edit, it doesn't show anything else.
Okay.
I've done it 3 times.
Instead of editing, you're going to click on the actual. So now that I have this kind of set up, I'm going to go back out to my module.
Excuse me? I also tried to click on the harmonize icon. Still, it doesn't. When I try to edit, it doesn't allow me. So then I
So
go
just
ahead and click on the harmonize icon. Still, it doesn't take me to the where you can edit and all that you're
so
showing.
are you clicking right here on where the title is, like you're
Yes.
opening up the assignment? And so
Mhm.
when you click on that, it doesn't take you to this page?
So yeah, it doesn't take me to that page. I'm stuck there. Previously, when I set the due date, it doesn't take me to that page.
Okay. Let
To
me
configure manually, it doesn't take me there.
okay.
Thank you.
Let me see. It Alan, are you in here, Alan, still? Not sure.
Yes.
Could you work message her individually and see if we can figure that out?
Yep. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Alan, I asked for reinforcements, and Alan came in. So Alan's one of our Harmonize employees. So he'll try to see if he can figure that out for you and see
Thank you.
what's going on.
Thank you very much.
All right. So, I guess I should ask: was anybody else trying to follow along, and did they run into the same issue, or has anybody else got into where they're seeing the same page I'm showing on my screen?
It might just be me, but I don't see your screen.
Yeah, there's probably somewhere you can click to see it. Sometimes Zoom is funny about that.
Let me just try this again. I'll reshare
It
my
it,
screen.
it was working, David. It's just
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
maybe refreshing it will auto pop it up for everybody. What about now?
Awesome, yes, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes if you've come in after I started the share, sometimes that'll do it. Thank you, David Dunn. I see that. Thank you for letting me know that you did reach that page. Okay. It's always good to make sure that at least somebody is getting there and it's not a bigger issue that we're having. So, yep, we'll get that.
David, yeah, we have a question here as well about, and I'll read it and take it, I suppose. The last semester, students had a hard time seeing the milestone due dates. They appeared in some parts of Canvas, but not others. Any updates connected to how milestones show from the student view? So I can take that because I understand that one. Milestone due dates will show up inside the Harmonize assignment. They will also show up on the student's course calendar, and they will show up in the student's to-do list. So if you set 2 due dates or 3 or 5 or 7, there's no limit to the number of due dates. They will always show up in the student's Canvas calendar as well as their to-do list. Now, I assume that where you would like to like for them to show up, just based on other conversations I've had, but they are not showing up, is within the module itself. And we would like for that too. Canvas does not allow us to do that. So from the module view, and David, maybe if you could can you open in a new tab? I don't want to put you on the fly, but if you could open up modules in a new tab, just go there, click on modules. I'll show you the workaround that people do to that. Is when you have any, okay, so on any activity here, like let's say it's a discussion because that's probably more applicable. If you, what they do is they'll change the name of the discussion by clicking, like click any discussion, David, where it says on those 3 dots over there to edit the name of the
Oh,
discussion, or you could
yeah.
probably do it from here, but
Yeah, I know what you're saying now. Yeah.
yeah. And what you'll do is that you will add, and this is something you're gonna have to do one time for each of your topics. Once you do it, they'll course copy over. But at the very end of that, if David scrolls to the all the way to the right side, then right here he would put a dash, and then he would put post by Wednesday, comments by Sunday, or something like that. And yeah, comments by Sunday. And then when you save that, when you update that, then you can see the student will see it in modules, but it's not going to pull those dates to modules because Canvas does not allow third-party vendors to put multiple due dates into a module. The reason that is typically resilient to course copy, though, is because whether you're teaching in the fall or whether you're teaching in the spring or the summer, whenever it is, even though the dates change, typically most instructors have the due date, for the first post to be, whatever that is, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then the comments to be due whatever day of the week, Saturday, Sunday. That's the workaround. If that is not specifically what you're asking, though, where you'd like it to be, then we can dig into that further.
Okay. Thank you for
What?
taking that question.
Yeah, sorry. One more question before I see Marcia also has her hand up. Is do the due dates also show up in the Canvas student app?
I can answer that one, David. I'm in now. Had a large crew, so they called in some reinforcements. Yes, they do, and the student to-do list is in the Canvas app. So because the calendar events get put into the student to-do list, and the student to-do list is in the app, therefore they show up. We don't directly do anything with the app to put them there. It's just because of the fact that they're in the calendar and the to-do list, they therefore show up in the mobile app.
Perfect. And Marcia, did you have a question?
Yes. So on the milestone, I see that you can change the number of posts and the days before the due date and comments. But then it says and whatever number of comments on the due date. It has to be on the due date or by the due date?
It's
So
by.
it's by.
It's by. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I teach my students prepositions. They're very different. They're like, I have to post on the due date. That's very stressful.
Yeah.
So my 2 cents is change by and put it by instead of on.
Yeah, it won't show that word on, I don't think, in it. We can verify that. I'm surprised that our instructional designer Alex is a former English teacher, so I'm surprised she didn't catch that. But yes,
I'm
that's
picky.
Yep. You can also set up, so let me explain what you're seeing here. This is our setup wizard. So this is like a quick way to get started with your discussion. You can actually go in here and configure manually, and I'll also show you some additional settings when we're done with the wizard, but it will actually give you the ability to do more than just this. But for now, this is what we see most people do. They want one post and a number of comments, and so this gives you. The reason why I told you in the beginning to do your due date on the 30th, which matches when the comments are, is because of course copy. So now when you go to course copy, the only thing you have to do is update your due date for the next semester, and you don't have to come in here and rearrange the due dates for those posts and comments. So everything kind of flows over nice and easy.
It just imports to the next semester. That's nice.
Yeah. And you just update the due date in Canvas. So yeah.
Okay. Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Marcia. So let's talk about the setup wizard real quick, and let's walk through this. So here you're going to see that the due date is here, and then as Marcia pointed out, you're going to get 3 options. The first one is going to be, do you want to use those multiple due dates? You don't have to. I would say the majority of our instructors who use Harmonize for discussions do set up milestones or multi-due dates. And it's going to ask you how many of the posts do you want and how many comments, and then how many days in between. And the example I gave earlier was 2 days between. So we're going to say the post is due 2 days prior to the 30th, which would be the 28th, and then those 2 comments by the 30th. See, I used by there. Thank you for pointing that out, Marcy.
I already pointed it out to the people to fix. So
now the second question here is, do you want us to auto grade this? Some of you might be like, well, auto grade? I don't want to auto grade this. I want to check my students' work. Don't have to use it. Leave it off. But sometimes you set up a discussion where you're not really going to go in and read every student's response. You're just wanting them to do the activity. Probably the most common one is introduce yourself week 1, right? You're not really going in and grading them on how they introduce themselves. So it's if you've got an assignment like that where you're just looking for them to do the activity, you can turn on auto grading, and that way it auto grades based on participation. We will not grade on content. So we're not going to give a grade on whether or not their post and comments were substantive enough to what you've asked them to do. It's just participation. Did they make the post? Did they make the comments? Did they do it on time? Did they meet the word count minimums? For this example, I'm going to leave that box unchecked because I'm not going to do auto grading. I'm going to actually attach a rubric, and I'm going to show you how to do that. And then here is, do you want to use Turnitin? You do not have to use Turnitin every single time. You can turn this on and off depending on that week's discussion or the assignment that you're going to be setting up. And so you can decide whether or not you want that box to be checked. I'll also point out right here, if I wanted to, if I don't want Harmonize to help me create a rubric, I can go ahead and attach a rubric right here by just clicking Find Rubric, and it'll go into your Canvas rubrics, and you can attach that here. So let's click on Write Instructions. So we got our milestone set up. I turned it in. I decided not to do auto grading. And so now I'm going to come in here and write my instructions. At this point, you've got two options. You may already have some great instructions that you've written. Maybe you've had an instructional designer help you. Maybe you've got them from somewhere and they're really well thought out and great instructions. Go ahead, click Write My Own Instructions and copy and paste those in. No problem. If you want to upgrade your instructions, or if this is a brand new class or a brand new course that you're teaching and you'd like to have some help coming up with discussion topics and instructions, you can ask us to help you. And the way you're going to do this is first by choosing what complexity level you want this discussion to be. Do you want the students to remember facts or understand information, apply, analyze, evaluate, or create? If this looks familiar, yes, we kind of created this based around Bloom's taxonomy. We just made the terminology, very basic and called it a complexity level. So I'm going to say I want my students to analyze some information. So I'm going to update that. And then I can do input here to have AI help me build out my instructions. And so I might say something like, I want to create a discussion about the concepts of graphic design and how those are used in business. The graphic design people that told me you were in graphic design, that's probably a horrible topic. Don't judge me on that, but I'm just kind of coming up with an example on the fly. You can also give more details in this box. This is for incoming freshmen at a community college. I want this to have a requirement for images. So you can give it whatever information it is. Now, this is hard. You would never show that text to the students and say, here's your instructions, right? This is you kind of brainstorming. And we actually call it Harmonized Brainstorm. So it's you brainstorming, what do I want this topic to be about? How do I want it set up? And you might even put in, I want one post and two comments. If you have learning objectives for your course, you can put those in as well. That will help dictate to the AI how to build out these instructions. And you just click generate. And now it's going to type out a sample for you to review. And I like to always say it's a sample for you to review. We are not dictating that you use this. We're not saying you have to take this word for word. It's just a sample, and you can read through that. Maybe you love this. Maybe you hate it. Maybe you think the AI is dumb and doesn't know what it's talking about. That's fine. You don't have to use this. You can also ask it to generate something different, and it'll quickly go in and give another idea. Or you can give it specific feedback here in this suggest improvements. Once you have it basically structured the way you want it, you click review and edit. And when you do that, we will then do a lot of the make it to where it's accessible with the headings and paragraphs and things like that. And then you are able to edit any of this. What I've heard a lot of instructors tell me is they will use this to this point and then click delete. Because it gave them an idea. Okay, now I have a general outline. Now I'm going to go type this. And if that's the way you want to do it, that's great. Maybe you just rewrite this a lot. Maybe you do heavy editing here. But it gave you that quick start to get ahead. And that's what we were trying to do to help you get get here quicker to this point. And so you can choose at this point how you want to use this. If I scroll here, I now have that ability. We talked about that row of goodies. I can come in here and add a video if I wanted to. So maybe I want to come in here and say, okay, let's go ahead and I'm going to record. Hey, class, this is David. Hope everyone had a great weekend. It's the beginning of the semester. Hopefully you're not too sunburned from the beach. Let's have a great first week and look forward to talking with you guys more throughout the semester. Okay. Quick, short, simple, just a little message, something to create that sense of community, right? And maybe you want to add a link here to a YouTube video. Maybe you want to add an image. Whatever you decide you want to add in here to increase, the experience of the student reading through these instructions. I'll use one of these images here. We have a mascot now. It's a guy that looks like he's from the 90s. I'll add that in here. I can change the size of images. And one other thing I'll point out here is, let's say, okay, I've got my instructions here. I've got my video. I want this image to go to the very top. I'm going to use those arrows. And so now when the students open up the instructions, they're going to see that image first, then the text, and then they'll see my video at the bottom. So you can kind of order that how you would like to do it. You can also add multiple videos, multiple text boxes, multiple images, and order those how you see fit. Now at the bottom here, Canvas has groups, and you can go in and set up groups. We will also give you this option if you want to use groups. We have a group feature within Harmonize. The advantage I've heard instructors say they like about our group sets is you can actually just say, I want groups of 15, and we'll organize all the students into however many, depending on your class size. If it's 45 students, we'll do 4 groups of 15. And so we'll do the organizing for you. You don't have to manually go in and pick which students are in each group. So if you want to use groups to narrow down, only 15 students will be a part of the discussion, and then these 15 will be a part of another discussion based on the same topic. You can click on that box and organize those students that way.
Quick comment on that, David. One of the things I hear from instructors as well that's important about that, because Canvas will do that as well. This will actually do it next semester on course copy without you having to do anything. Okay. So it's kind of a subtle difference there, but like you set them up, group of 15, copy to next semester, it will automatically do that for you next semester without you having to rebuild your groups. You can use your Canvas group sets. We don't prohibit you from doing that. But that's one of the benefits is like you set them up once and then you don't have to think about it anymore.
Yeah, especially if you don't care who makes up those groups, right? So that's the nice part. So now that I've built some of those instructions, now I want some help from Harmonize to build out a rubric to use for this discussion. And so I can click here, set up rubric. And what it's going to do is it's going to then analyze my instructions. It does not have to be instructions that you used Harmonize to build. It could be where you just copied in your own instructions you've used for semesters now. We'll just analyze whatever instructions you have sitting in the instruction area, and we will then try to give you suggestions of 4 focus areas, which would be basically your rubric criteria, right? You can edit these. You can say, yeah, I like this one and this one, but I don't like this one. I'm going to delete it. You could come in here and edit either the topic or the description underneath it. You can add your own focus areas. You can add more focus areas to your Harmonized rubric. It does not have to be just 4. You could do as many as you would like. We can't add so we can add rows. We can't add columns to ours. So we can't do more than 4 columns or less than 4 columns. It has to be 4 columns, but we can do more rows or less rows. You could only have 3 rows. I will point out here at the top, this is where you can turn on our AI coaching. And a lot of what I'm talking about will make this easier when we go into the assignments as well in a little bit, is the AI coaching can be turned on or off here. And that AI coaching is when a student asks for a review of their work before they submit it. And we give them feedback based on how close they are to meeting the criteria of these focus areas. And what that looks like for the student is this is the report they will see. And if you notice on this report, we don't tell the student what they got right or wrong, and nor do we tell them what to fix to make it better. We just say on a scale of 1 to 3, this is how close you are to meeting the criteria of the rubric. Do with that with what what you will. And so the students will typically go back, revise, edit, and then they'll get a new report, and it will say whether or not they're getting better, staying the same. It'll give them a new, 1 out of 3 score here. A lot of instructors who use this have reported to us that students like to gamify this a little bit. So they'll try to get this as high of a score as they can possibly get. And then they kind of step away and say, okay, now I'm ready to submit. Marcus, I saw you come off of mute. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, there was a question in the chat that you probably will cover, but I just want to make sure. This rubric that we're generating does get put back in Canvas. We link it up to the assignment for you. It is then available in SpeedGrader. So we are generating the rubric, but it becomes a full-blown Canvas rubric when you publish your whatever you're building, peer review assignment discussions.
Yep. Again, we're not forcing any of this on you. So if you don't want that AI coaching on, just turn it off. But it's there if you would want to use it. Once you make these edits, hit next. And at that point in time, you can then click generate full rubric, and it will give you the full rubric, which, as Marcus just said, will feed back into your Canvas rubrics. If you kind of design this and then you're like, okay, I like this harmonized rubric and I want to use the same harmonized rubric for all of my discussions, you can go back and pick that and add it in. I can reverse the rating order. I can edit what those headings are going to look like. And then I can also go into each individual row and change any descriptions there. We will automatically do a point spread based on the point you chose in the beginning. I did 5 points. It was a low stakes, discussion. But even there, it'll divide that up, to 1.5, 1, and 0.5. If you want to change those spreads, you can come in here and do that. And now I'm going to save the rubric. And I can publish now if I'd like. I'm going to show you a couple of different settings that I have heard instructors say that they also like to use. So I'm going to click here on configure additional settings. And at the top here, I'm going to go to where it says post settings. And this is something that Canvas has in their discussions, and it's hide all posts and comments from students who have not posted yet. A lot of instructors say they turn this on. So if you want that to be turned on, you just click that little toggle. And if I scroll down here, this is also where I could set up groups. But this one's important in that you might be thinking from the beginning of this training, I don't want to have to look at 30, 45 students, 35-minute videos in a discussion each week. We don't want you to do that either. You can choose what the limit is on the student's submission for videos, and that can be as low as 1 minute, as high as 60 minutes, depending on what you want to allow them to do in any increment, 1 minute at a time. So I could do 13 minutes or 23 minutes or 68 minutes, whatever.
On the efficiency side as well, we put full transcripts below the videos now. And something we didn't make super apparent, although I think we should, is that those transcripts are actually clickable to jump you to that point in time in the video. So if you are also thinking students talk too slow, I read more quickly than they speak, you can actually just read the transcripts. And if you see something that's interesting that you want to zoom in on, click on the transcript. It'll jump you to that point in the video. I feel like we will probably need to make that more evident that that's possible. But since you're all here and awesomely attending training, just keep that in mind. If you're using transcripts, you can play and click around in them.
And I'll also point out here for any instructors, if you know that you've got a seeing impaired student and you want to make sure that they have audio descriptions added to to all the videos, even the student created videos. You do have the ability to turn that on here.
Wait,
Oh,
not
well,
not
okay.
entirely correct. You have to have your LMS administrator turn that on. We make it visible to you so you know it's there, but because there is a possible financial consequence to that, we want you to run that through your administrator. So if you do have someone who needs audio descriptions on student work and you want us to generate them with AI, talk to your administrator and they can come in and toggle that for this particular class.
Very good.
David's an administrator, so he has that power.
Yep.
But no, average instructors who aren't LMS administrators don't.
So if we go back up here to the top, and thanks for letting us know that, Marcus. I'm going to click on the milestone due date in auto grading tab at the top, and here, let's say I decided afterwards I don't want to use that rubric. I want to turn on auto grading. I can do that here. But probably where I see a lot of instructors will add additional settings to their discussions is they want word count minimums. So this is where you can do a word count minimum for your post and then a separate one for your comments. And remember, if you want that AI detection to work and turn it in, if you guys have that, would be to make sure you do 300 words there. Oh, yes. Let me go back here to the post settings. If I scroll down, I'm going to see default closed captioning languages. It's going to default to English, but that closed caption can be Chinese, Hindi, Spanish, French, Arabic, Russian, Portuguese, Indonesian, Italian, German, or Japanese. Does that include all the ones you said? Yep, French, Spanish, and Japanese. There we go.
And you can turn them off for ASL classes and such. I also will say we introduced a piece of technology that attempts to detect the language and switch midstream when we're captioning. It was an upgrade to from a third-party captioning service we use. I am not confident in how good it will detect, how well it will detect people who are practicing foreign language. So proceed with caution there. But that way you don't have to pick multiple languages, Kate. It will actually attempt to do multi-language captioning of the videos for you. But as with most machine captions, if it's a heavy accent or heavy acronyms, you may need to go in and use the caption editor to quickly fix those things that are not correct.
All right, so I'm at the point now. I'm ready to hit publish. I'm going to do that. And now I have my discussion ready to go. So now I'm seeing my due date here. I see my comments or my post due date, my comment due date. I see my instructions. I see here's those what success looks like. If the student wants to, they can click there and see the rubric. And then the students would be able to come in here and start posting. That was a lot. Did anybody have any issues or further issues? Do you have any other questions before we go into assignments and social reading?
Kate,
I do also need to show you. Yes, go ahead, Kate.
Thank you for the information. It's very helpful. I've never used Harmonize before, so going through this and me being able to do it at the same time is very helpful. Just a quick question on grading. I know we had the choice of having it like manually graded or the system will do it. What are the pros and cons to that?
Yeah. So I would say the pros is if you turn on the auto grading, it's going to save you a lot of time. That's the biggest pro, right? Again, you don't want to do this on a discussion or an assignment or any other of our tools where you feel like you need to go in and review that content.
Let me jump in as a nuance there as well. Something I've heard is that even in a quality-based grade system with a rubric, people will actually turn on auto grading with a rubric, let the grade flow automatically, because in a formative or a low stakes assignment, most people will get an A, and you can just leave it as an A and give whatever feedback you want. So they're there. But then because you did have a rubric for the 6 students who really needed some detailed feedback, instead of spending your time giving every student an A except for those 6, leave the other ones as A, come into those 6, use the rubric to give really substantive feedback to the student. So it's kind of like, where do you target your energy as an instructor? We will pre-fill the grade book with grades based on participation. But if you can really come in and then use that extra time to re-hone in and be extra attentive human for those students who need it most from an equity perspective, then you can really help them out. So it's nuanced, I would say. The thing that we do not want you to do is to always turn on auto grading for quality-based assignments, because then you're doing a disservice to the students. So it's really about, when can you save time and when can you reinvest that time in something that is more meaningful to you as an instructor, which means more meaningful to your students as well.
All right.
And
Thank
you can always override the auto grade. So like right here, Laverne, she got pushed 100 for her participation. If I wanted to, I can come in here and change that to an 80 because, you know, I just see that. Or as Marcus said, you know, there's the auto grade, but then I'm going to come in here and use the rubric here in SpeedGrader. So either way, you have that ability to override the grade.
Couple things came up in the chat, David, and one of them I'd never thought of before, but Amy's right. If we auto submit a grade, it no longer is listed as needs grading in the gradebook. So Amy calls us out, and I think this is a good point. If you are entirely reliant on the needs grading notification in Canvas to come in and get your grading done for your students, because we have graded it, Canvas sees the grade and does not list it that way. I had never thought of that before, but that's a really good point, Amy. So people should be cognizant of that as well. And then Mithia asked a question about grading, like, how do the grades for the milestones and final submissions show up in the gradebook? This is an important nuance in that it's all one grade. So it's like half the points for the first post, half the points for the comments. Those get sent to the gradebook as a single grade at the time when the work is done or when the due date passes as you go. And David will cover some of that with the when he gets into the grading interface side of things, which I'm thinking he's going to do now. Is that right, David?
Yeah. And you can see right here, this was James. He didn't complete everything. He only did one comment. So he got the 50 points or 50% for the post, and then he got half for the comments. And so that sent an 87.5 into the grade book. So that's how it's going to show.
There was one additional question about setup. Is it possible to take the assisting assignments and discussions and harmonize them as a verb, which I kind of enjoy? You do have to copy and paste them at this point. We don't have a way to automatically suck in, disable your old discussion, create a new one out of it type of thing. So there is a copy and paste step there if you have a discussion prompt already existing. You can start with that with AI and let it grow in it, or you can just click the write my own instructions and paste in exactly what you have.
Yep.
I think that's all I had from the chat, David. You're good to go again.
All right. So I am looking now at SpeedGrader. So when I come into SpeedGrader to grade for a harmonized discussion, I'm going to have, I like to break this up into 3 sections. I have the right side, which is going to be the SpeedGrader section. The middle, which kind of shows you an overview from a statistical standpoint, like what did they do, when did they do it, how much did they do it, and then you see the content on the left side. Most of our instructors will say they don't interact much in the discussion with students. In the discussion itself, they do most of their interactions within the grading interface. And that's because you can do all those interactions right here. So if I'm in here grading right now, I can come in, I can respond, do annotations. I can actually do those reactions here, just like I do in the discussion itself. I can also come in here and give them feedback, whether that be by text or by video. I can also mark that feedback as private if that's needed, or if you want it to be for the whole class to see when you know what you're saying, you don't mark it as private.
I like to say this is the equivalent of, as an instructor, instead of us making you go back into the discussion, find the post, click on the post, turn it over, click add a comment there. That's too much clicking. If you come in halfway through your assignment, the discussion's still active. Everybody who's already finished their work is ready to grade. You can knock out half your grading. You can also use that content to leave comments on. Therefore, you're facilitating the discussion as well. And from an RSI perspective, that's gold, right? You've given feedback and grading. That's good. You are facilitating the discussion. You're doing that all at one time when you're getting your grading done. So it's really, instead of thinking about grading everything at the end when the discussion is closed, if you do come in and grade some students when that are ready to grade because they finished the work early, you can also use that content to facilitate the discussion without leaving your grading window.
Yep. And we had a question about will the students be notified of a comment either by students or instructors? So there's a couple of different ways they're going to be notified. There is notification settings that you and the students both can go into. If you're in anywhere in Harmonize, you can click on the gear shift here or the gear wheel and come down here to notification settings. That will take you into where you can decide how often and when you want to be notified of things, and the students see this as well. However, another way to do this, especially within the grading, is you can also, at any place that you see a text box, you can put the @ symbol, and your students from that class are going to pop up. And so I could come in here and say, okay, @Edith, and that will then send her a notification to let her know that she has been tagged in that comment. So a couple of different ways they're going to be notified.
I have a question for you. Yeah, say, David, go ahead. Arlo.
Yeah, I like the idea of being able to, grade as people submit. I'm wondering, does it discriminate between the two like milestones, right? Because I imagine halfway through you'll get a lot of students that have submitted the post but not the comments. So if I'm on SpeedGrader, is there some way to divide that?
So there's going to be two options. And this is kind of how we say this for instructors to be safe. Canvas, if the due date has not passed yet, which would be, the 30th, and the student has not completed both milestones, when you click on SpeedGrader, you're not going to see any of their work, even what they've already submitted. So if it's before the due date, instead of hitting SpeedGrader, hit Activity, and Activity will show you all of their work. When you go into SpeedGrader, it will let you know with a check mark here if they're ready to be graded or not. So you can kind of go through and see which students have met the requirements to be graded. Marcus, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you said that well. I will refocus everybody who may be drifting a little bit because you guys have been in here a while, and I appreciate that can make you tired. This is the number one question we get from instructors. I went into SpeedGrader, and a student who had posted but not commented is not showing up in SpeedGrader. That's on purpose. They're not ready to grade yet because they have more time. They have not finished the work. Therefore, they don't appear in SpeedGrader. Like David said, you can get to them from the activity view if you're just reviewing activity, but they are not ready to grade. So we don't put them into SpeedGrader because that triggers a whole bunch of stuff we won't get into that Canvas starts notifying you of things. You did have another question come in about the notifications that David was talking about. Those are email notifications. Those are in Harmonize notifications. We are not allowed to put things into the standard Canvas notifications. So keep that in mind.
And then I think, Marcus, you said you wanted to answer something live.
That was the one. That was the live one. So.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yep, probably from a support standpoint, we do get that question a lot from instructors because they forget, oh man, it's not the due date yet, and so that's the reason why the students' work is not showing yet. Yes, you can go in and review and interact with them, but not grade yet. So that's the way you kind of think through that. We was talking earlier about the reactions. I've also heard a lot of instructors say, you got a class of 30, 40, 50 students. You're not going to probably give feedback on every single post that every single student does in a discussion every single week. What instructors tell me they like to do is use the reactions so that, okay, I looked over Laverne's post. I'm not going to give her feedback, but now she knows at least I looked at it because I gave her a thumbs up. So that at least lets the student know, yes, my instructor saw this. They kind of looked over it. they gave me a thumbs up, and then they moved on. And kind of like what Marcus said earlier, it lets you focus on those students that probably need the feedback more so than just every student getting good job put in. And that takes more time instead of you just giving a quick thumbs up on the reactions.
If you like Rate My Professor scores and want them to raise, use video here. Students love hearing and seeing their instructor giving feedback on what they do. So keep in mind, I'm joking about the Rate My Professor, but in-course evaluation surveys, the instructors who are present and recording video back to the students, my instructor sees me, they hears me scores go way off the top of the chart. So.
Yeah, and if I click here, let's say I wanted to give some feedback here to Laverne, I want to do it by video, and I gave her some feedback here. You'll see, actually, you don't even have to click on those three dots. It'll actually give you a toggle switch here to say, mark this as private between you and Laverne. And so you can quickly turn that on. So I think there was a question, is this open for all eyes? Unless you mark it as private, it would be open for all the students in that group or in that discussion to see. So make sure you realize that and keep.
Yeah, Heather calls us out as a spidey sense, which I think is right. Think about what you're going to say publicly or not. Like, for example, a recording that's like, this is a great example. Hey, everybody in the class, pay attention. This is what I'm looking for. She did X, she did Y, she did Z. Great example for those who haven't yet participated. Those types of things, great for facilitating a discussion. Or, hey, I'm seeing a common misconception that many of you have made. I want to go ahead and correct it here. If you feel like that's okay to do publicly because you're pulling in other people, great. If you're going to do something where you're like, look, you messed this up, see me in office hours, please don't do that publicly. Mark it as private or do it in the grade book or reach out to the student privately as well as you go. Administrators, folks can see it. Students can't, though, when it's private. So to Kate's question, if it's private, people who are instructor or above can still see it. But the student cannot, other students cannot. So just keep that in mind. The thing I do not want to have happen is you excoriate some student because you're having a bad day and they've annoyed you and you do that publicly, and that's just a whole mess. Not that any of you would do that, but I may have heard of an example where an instructor did that and it wasn't pleasant. So please proceed with caution.
Yeah, especially in the discussions, I think where the interaction is best is for you to contribute to the overall discussion. Now, when we're talking about assignments, you don't have to worry about the visibility, and there you can do a lot more of that feedback right here in this and not worry about it being public to other students. Just really quickly, if I keep scrolling down, I'm going to see Laverne's comments that she made. I can easily see who she commented on, as well as the topic of that post. If I wanted to, I can click on the post and it'll take me to that post. And I can also see here in the middle the number of posts that she made and comments that she made, the number of comments she received and reactions that she received. And so it gives a nice overview of what Laverne did this week in the discussion. And I'm going to take a break and let everybody kind of take a breath. If you have questions, you can ask those. And then we're going to go, I'm going to show you social reading and private assignments, and we'll kind of go over those really quickly. But just to give everybody a moment to kind of, okay, let's resettle. And
I came in late. Are you an hour and 10 minutes into this training?
Actually, no, we started at 1:45, so we're
okay.
almost hour and a half.
Okay. I'm impressed you all are still alive in the chat and asking questions. That's pretty impressive that you haven't fallen over. Kate, did you have a question?
Yeah, just maybe you guys can't answer that, but being new to Harmonize, I really like it. I guess my question would be, I always every week do a discussion board question to where, like, would it be confusing to students to continue to have the regular Canvas discussion board questions and then some weeks do the Harmonize way? I don't want them to, be confused by the Harmonize and then regular discussion board, and then I have assignments as well.
It's very common to have both.
Okay.
And I think the reason that's okay is because the learning curve is really Harmonize is I mean, at your school, it's actually becoming wide enough use that maybe it's becoming the default. But instructors always begin with moving one or two discussions in. Students exist in that world. If you find benefit about something with the Canvas discussions that works differently or better, stick with it, right? Like we don't say move everything over. But there's enough stuff they're doing in Canvas that you're always going to have Canvas stuff. Don't worry about leaving extra Canvas stuff around, I would say as well.
Okay, thank you.
Seda, you had a question.
Hey, Katie, just to give a feedback, I start to use it and I was very worried that the students would get confused. It was a breeze. It's clean, is, in my opinion, much better because I teach language. So I use a video, I use the oral and also written exercise. I was kind of making them like a guinea pig. I said, if it doesn't work, I'll give you credit anyway. And works wonderful. They like it. It's very, very simple, very easy. They didn't have any problem calling me to ask how to do it, nothing. The only thing I got so kind of a freak out, it was like the grades because I didn't know. I went to check the grades and see where's the grades they disappear. But then, like you said, you need to have everybody there, but you can always find a way. And yeah, no problem. Like I said, I did video, oral and written. So, and I like it. It's easier, not easier, but to do the oral for them to practice the language. And also, I ask a question for them to answer. And then I said, choose one person. Don't go with a lot of people at the same time. Just ask one classmate. They don't have to be there. They can do 2 days after, 3 days after. And then it's there. So I love it. So like I said, it's a little tricky at the beginning, but not difficult whatsoever. Very, very easy. Yeah.
We don't get a lot of complaints or if they I can't figure it out from the students as much as it is, you know, the setup on your end as the instructor is a little bit of a learning curve, but the students kind of pick it up. They seem to pick it up.
Yeah, there is a lot of a easy way. I did a lot. I do a lot of shortcuts. I don't kind of follow much what you said. For me, it's easier the way I do. And it's quick and fast and work it. So now that I feel more confident, I'm going to start to add more, but little by little, because I need to know very well in order to give to them. Otherwise, if they have any complications, I won't be able to resolve. So, but so far, so good. Very modern. Love it.
I can't second that enough. Like little by little is a great rule.
Yeah.
Don't get so far ahead of your own awareness of Harmonize. Like what she's saying is correct.
Yeah. Very short questions. What's your name in Spanish? And what's your name? Where do you live? And then the person answers and they say, now ask someone, and the person will be answered that. That's it, just to see if it works. And for my side, for their side. And then you keep adding and you can do videos, but later on. Yeah. So, but that's me, my opinion. No? So it's working. Wonderful.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Tara, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to share the only thing that I've noticed that can be confusing for students is because it's set up like a Canvas assignment, students will see the icon of an assignment and may not necessarily realize that it is a discussion because of the icon. So if you're getting started with it as a new thing, to maybe add something within the title that it is in fact a discussion, because they won't see those two due dates and they won't see that discussion icon. So adding that would be really helpful for students as well.
And if you decide to be really experimental and you're going to do assignments and social reading and, you know, just adding like Harmonize week 3 discussion to your, like that at least lets them know, okay, this is Harmonize. I saw this in my syllabus. We're going to try Harmonize out this semester. So I know that this is where I need to click for Harmonize. Okay, it's a discussion or it's a social reading. That just gives them that visual cue to be able to know where to go.
Yep. Yeah, I create like a new page every week, and because I also teach OER, so before I put the assignments on the link, I put the OER site that say this is, for example, LibreText assignment, and then Harmonize, and then I put Harmonize -Canvas, and then the assignment, so they know. The students are very savvy. They know. They are just amazing. They're getting better and better.
David,
So,
did you have a question?
It's finding
On
the
mute.
speak button.
Yeah.
I
If you have existing rubrics, I noticed that you can import them, but I didn't see where they ended up exactly.
Yeah, you can. So you can actually assign a rubric, a Canvas rubric that exists to a Harmonize assignment, but we can't pull it in and display it within the instruction block and do the coaching on it. It appears only below and in SpeedGrader for the student. So we can't fully pull that thing in and have it display inside of Harmonize, but we can push a Harmonize rubric back out into Canvas if that makes sense. So your students, if you assign a pre-existing one, you either need to rebuild it in Harmonize if you want it to appear within
Okay.
Harmonize, or it just appears below it in the standard Canvas way, which students are probably used to because that's where Canvas sticks rubrics. It's below the assignment
Okay.
or below
All
the
right.
discussion.
So okay. So I can't import that. Okay.
Yeah, the import is from another course. So because we have some instructors that want to import a rubric from another course and they can grab one from a different assignment or different course, but that's all Harmonized rubrics we're moving around at that point.
So
Okay.
I don't know if you saw it, Marcus, but before I go into the social reading and assignments, there's someone asked about group projects. If Harmonize supports that, and I said not yet, but
So some nuance on that. We have a lot of people work on group stuff in harmonized discussions because you can make a group discussion, right, where they're doing teamwork inside there. They can only see their own posts and such. The thing David's saying we don't do yet is a common request more and more, which is I want to do group grading. I want a group assignment where it's like, okay, they've worked on it all in Harmonize. Now they're going to turn in, one of the students is going to turn it in. I grade that once. That grade gets pushed out to all the students. That piece we don't do. We just say, hey, go back and use the Canvas group assignment for the final submission of whatever group work they were doing. So it's very common to use just Harmonize in small groups to work on the stuff and share the artifacts and share their screens and critique and thrash around. But then when it's finally the time to turn in the one piece of work for the group, we often just say, hey, create a Canvas group assignment for that. Although people are more and more pressing on us to build that inside of Harmonize as well. And David and I just had a conversation about that literally last week of where does this fit into our timeline.
Which would be amazing. I'm sorry, that was my question. Because I have an assignment where I want the students to kind of do like a think tank in small groups to create like the terms and conditions in a contract. Then I have them plug those terms and conditions into AI, and then they can each all make their own, and then they each turn in a version. And then I distribute that out to a different group for them to decide whether or not they would sign it. So now they're looking at what other students do. I tried to do Canvas last semester, and it was a disaster because I had students that didn't participate. One group figured out on Google Docs that each student could add with a different color what they contribute to the assignment. So I just was wondering if Harmonize has a more efficient way for me to like do that assignment.
The only thing I would say is that you can have do what you're doing, creating their own T's and C's and such, and then create a peer review module, which I don't think David covered earlier, but we have a peer review module where you can then put students into different groups. Like you're no longer with your teammates, you're over here. They each turn in their own T's and C's as part of the peer review process, and two people from that group read their T's and C's and decide if they think they're valid, they critique them, whether they would sign them or not. We have a formal peer review module to be able to do that, like you are going to review this student, and we spread that type of thing out. I don't know if I'm guessing that's not covered today because that's a lot to cover in one day, but I'll go find the how to use peer review doc and I'll drop it into the chat for you if that's something you want to do. And if you have questions about your particular assignment, we have an ID on staff that can kind of help with that type of stuff as well.
Awesome.
Although
Thank you, guys.
Although I'm guessing Tara's team is also awesome at that because they've been with Harmonize for a while, so she's probably already thinking of peer review ways to to do that.
All right, so we've got about a little less than 30 minutes. I want to show everyone our social reading and our individual assignment and kind of show you that and show you how you would set those up. A lot of the steps that we showed earlier on the discussion setup are going to be very similar to setting these up. Kind of when you get into the setup is going to be a little bit different, but as far as the Canvas side is going to be the same. So when we talk about a social reading, this is social annotations. So this is where you have a document where instead of the discussion being about a topic, and all the students go into the discussion board and they talk about the topic. This is where the students can go in and actually have that discussion on top of the actual content for the class. And not sure why that did that.
They set it up to load in a new window on you. Yes, so you need to click the load social reading in a new window. Someone tweaked your assignment out from underneath you.
Okay. Thank you, Marcus.
No problem.
Someone mentioned earlier about using OER, so this is a great tool to use with OER resources because usually those are in PDF form. The only thing I will caution here is that we do not test to see if a piece of PDF is accessible. And so you do need to make sure and verify that your PDFs are accessible before you load them into this type of assignment. But you can see here that this is a PDF that we uploaded. And so the students are coming in and they're actually highlighting or dropping pins on the PDF. And then they're having that discussion here on the side. You can put in how many annotations you want the students to do and how many replies you would like for them to do. This is also a great tool because so many students are just not very good anymore at doing reading. And so you assign a reading, read this PDF, and the students never read it. This is a way that you could actually maybe substitute a discussion that you would typically do, the traditional discussion. Instead of using traditional discussion, try this. And that way they're doing the reading and doing the discussion all in one activity.
David, you're demoing the next version of the PDF annotation. I assume you're doing that on purpose?
I did not know that. I am doing that on accident.
Okay, just so people know, and David's a brave man because he's demoing a piece of software that is not fully tested yet. We've made a lot of enhancements to PDF annotation, social reading. I noticed you guys were calling it PDF annotation. So when you go in, it's going to not look quite as pretty as this does. But in a few weeks, that's going live. We're finishing the testing on it now. So David, that's why your new window thing confused you. And I was staring at it like, that's the next version. What is he? So go with God. I hope it doesn't break. It should be fine because the testing is mostly done. But if it does break, give David some grace. He's showing you what's going to be live in a few weeks, which is important because it's what your students are going to see when your semester starts as well.
Do we have any questions? I saw some comments coming through. This is a great option versus perusal. Yes.
I'm sorry.
Very similar.
Yes. Can they record their answers instead of typing them in for social reading?
Not currently.
We don't have an option for them to record any comments. This would all be text-based. They do have the ability to do some things like choose their highlight color or choose, if they want to do drop a pin instead of highlight, they can do that. But as far as multimodal inside of the social reading, we don't offer that yet.
Okay.
This is a pretty AI resilient way to have your students do reading. Just to put this little thought in your head. Right now, your students are probably taking your readings and pasting them in or uploading them into AI and having it summarize them, which is not what we want. We want deeper reading than that. This forces the students to both read more closely because they're going to highlight stuff. It forces them to be active, which engages a different part of their brain. They're interacting with peers. That causes deeper comprehension. Some research shows up to 10%. So this is both AI resilient because AI doesn't know how to navigate and yet anyway, know how to navigate and highlight things in our app. And then they have this peer connectivity going on the side. Instructors who center around reading sometimes don't do discussions. They just do this because instead of saying, read this and discuss, it's like, just read it and have a sidebar conversation as you're going so that they can interact with each other while they're reading. It replaces 2 assignments with 1. It then you can auto grade it so that they can actually be graded based on the number of annotations and comments. So you have a grade assigned with a due date to the reading. So we're causing deeper reading, more AI resilient reading, auto graded reading, and we're making it more where the discussion can be embedded inside the text. For like doing T's and C's and stuff like this is a great way to group review T's and C's. You can make this a small group assignment or a private assignment and have them actually mark up T's and C's using a tool like this. for the instructor who was doing T's and C's in her class. For non-lawyers, obviously don't mess with T's and C's, but as well.
And as a father of a 19-year-old who is a sophomore in college, I will say, at least in my experience, you put any resistance up to most students, and that reliance of going to ChatGPT to do their work kind of dissipates pretty quickly. Here's a prompt, give me 200 words. That's easy for my son to do, and he can throw that into chat. He would be coming to me saying, "Dad, do you know any way that you can get ChatGPT to mark up a PDF for me?" That would be what that conversation would sound like. Because as soon as they get any resistance, that's when they kind of back down. Most students, most. There are those students who are advanced and savvy and they know how to use AI and they got plenty of money to spend on AI tools to let them do things. But most of them are, once they hit a little bit of resistance compared to what is out there, they're just going to go, okay, it's easier for me to just go in here and highlight this myself and make the comments.
Tara made a really good comment that she apparently thinks harder about our tool sometimes than we do. To the question about audio in the sidebar comments, this very similar functionality to this is available over in the discussion. Like if you as an instructor put a PDF inside your discussion, students can still highlight and mark it up like this. The only difference is they're each marking up their own copy and making a post based around that. So they could mark up 6 lines in the document and then record a video reflection with deeper thought. We call that critique versus social reading because they're taking a document, they're doing a deep critique and analyzing it and reflecting on it, etc. So yeah, Tara, good suggestion. You can put a PDF into your instructions in the discussion, and then they can add notes to it, which then lets them highlight things, and it creates a post with their notes that they can then elaborate and build upon. That's outside of scope of this training, so if that confuses you, don't worry about it. Go play with sticking a PDF in the instructions, logging in as a test student, and you'll see what I mean. Or we also offer group trainings devoted to this type of stuff as well. I guess, David, you weren't intending to cover that today, were you?
Well, I kind of went over it a little bit in the discussions, but just kind of highlighted.
Okay.
If you have any more questions about social reading, go ahead and ask those in the chat, and we'll address those. But I want to also show you kind of an example really quickly of an assignment through Harmonize. And being that one part of my job is to go into conferences, one of the things I've heard from a lot of people and having these conversations, Canvas does a restriction that when you create an assignment, you have to choose the submission type of what you want that assignment to be. Is it text-based? Is it a file? Is it a video, etc.? One of the probably biggest features that Harmonize offers within our individual assignment is you can do multimodal assignments here. So instead of just saying to the student, give me a paper or give me a video, or having to create 2 separate submission type assignments to get both of those, you can do this in one. And so here would be an assignment. This is where we've asked the students, this was an example I had where the students are asked in an art class to do a color scheme. And now what you're seeing on this side is the instructor view. This looks like a discussion. So you're seeing all the students' work. If the student came in, they would either see nothing or only their work. So that is a confusion point. Sometimes we hear from instructors, oh, I did this wrong. They can all see everybody's. No, calm down. It's not, you're seeing it because you're the instructor. So you get a nice, really good visual of all the student submissions. But when the student comes in, they can only see their work. If I click here on Nick came in, he gave an image here, but then he also did a reflection video. And so when you go into grade, you're not grading the image or the paper or whatever, and then having to go in and grade again on the video. You're going to see that all in one view. And kind of what we know is that this UDL multimodal type of assignment where you're asking the student to do more than just type out text, if you're asking them to do reflection videos, if you're asking them to create a poll or asking them to create an image or draw out something or share a screenshot, when you combine 2 of those elements or more together, that's whenever it becomes much more resilient to AI. Because a student, yeah, they could have AI create this image, but it's harder for them to then come in and create a video explaining the process and the reflection of creating that image without with AI helping it. And so this is probably the key. If you look here, this is very similar to what you see in discussions. This was kind of built on top of discussions. So that same, all the functionality we talked about in the beginning of what you get within harmonized discussions, the students get here. They can choose to come in here and use that row of goodies. But they're just able to do it for an individual assignment, and you can kind of stack those on top of each other.
Playing on top of something David said earlier, he was talking about grading and giving private feedback and assignments. Now he's replying as the instructor inside a speed grader, giving that private commentary. Some instructors choose to do this over on the left side, right side, the things. But you also, let's say they're doing a PowerPoint presentation. Inside this left window, you can watch that PowerPoint or watch that video. You can actually do timestamp commentary on that video as you're watching it and add time markers of responses. So you can do really deep critique in the assignments as well. So they're multi-part. You could have their PowerPoint slides, their PowerPoint presentation, a reflection on the process, and their written notes all as part of one assignment. You could deep critique each of those, highlight stuff in the notes, timestamp commentary on the presentation, draw on their slides, those types of things, all in this left-hand window. And then on the right-hand side, you can just be like, I deep critiqued everything in Harmonize. Go look at it for them.
Yep.
Really, really substantive interaction there. Like if you're looking to crush RSI and you have timestamp comment on a PowerPoint presentation presented by the student in the class, you are all over interaction. You are crushing it, I would say, and the students love that level of feedback. I do want to highlight again, put a comment in the gradebook telling them to go there, because some students have their blinders on and they're just like, I only look at the gradebook once the assignment is done. I ignore all notifications from old assignments, old discussions. They get in that mode of chasing the grade. So I do encourage you to stick a note in there and being like, I deep critiqued your stuff in the assignment. Go look.
So let's go back, and I'm going to go back to my playground. So if you want to follow along on creating either one of these, I'm going to go back here and go to my sandbox. And again, I'm going to create an assignment. And so for this one, I want to say Harmonize, Sierra, social reading, or PDF annotations, whatever you want to call it, week 5. PDF. So now that I've created that, I can then open that up. And just like we did with the discussion, we're going to edit that assignment. Give it some points here. Maybe I do 30 points, just making something up. And then again, this is the submission type. Maricela, did we ever get you straightened out? Did you ever were able to open up and edit inside of Harmony? You were not. Okay. You're on mute. Well, I'll make sure we follow up. We'll see what's going on there, why you're not able to see the Harmonize after you attach the external tool. So we're going to attach the external tool here, find Harmonize in that list. And here, this is where we're going to now, instead of clicking on discussion, we're going to click on that social reading. And kind of same rule applies if you're asking them to do 3 annotations and 2 replies. Let's do the date that the replies would be due on. So we'll do the 30th again. And we'll hit save. And Marcus, what Maricela was saying is that when she gets here, it's not taking her to Harmonize. So I'm not sure what's going on there with that.
That's probably deeper than I know how to go. So
Yeah.
I have to have support look at and see what browser extensions or something may be going on.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
it could
you.
be. All right, so here, kind of similar to those discussion setups, how many annotations do you want? So let's say we want 3, and we want that due maybe 3 days before the due date. And then we want them to do 2 replies. So just kind of change out those, post and comments with annotations and replies. But basically they're the same. And do you want this auto-graded? I'm going to go ahead and click that yes. And then I'm going to select the document. So I'll just come in and go on to my computer and find a PDF document for me to
While
do.
David's looking for his PDF, Chris asked a good question in the comments. Does it have to be a PDF? The answer is no. If you have a Word doc or an Excel file or a Visio or PowerPoint, etc., if you upload that, we will turn it into a PDF. But you should take a look at it because we use the same library that Canvas does to convert things to PDF. And in my belief, if you already have it open in PowerPoint, you probably should go ahead and save it as a PDF from there, because I'm going to guess, I don't have any know for sure, but I'm going to guess that PowerPoint does a better job of saving as PDF than this library that us and Canvas use to do this type of thing for you. If you don't have it, if you can't do that, be great. It can't be a website, but you can actually take a website and print it to PDF from Chrome, and then you have a static snapshot of that website for them to be able to drop pins on and such, and critique and things as well. We don't do videos. If you need to do an image, you actually need to go drop that image into a Word doc or Google Doc and save it as a PDF. So videos and images and websites, we don't do. You have to find some way to convert those into a PDF to be able to do that. That's generally just print from your browser. For a website or an image, you can print from browser straight to PDF. But for videos, you have to then use those in the discussion as a critique.
So now that we've set up those requirements at the beginning, we're going to actually give you some sample instructions here. Alex, our instructional designer, wrote these. And so this will give a base instruction for the students to know how to come in and actually do the highlights and do the replies. But this is editable. If you want to delete this, go ahead and delete it. Don't like it, you ain't going to hurt any of our feelings, but you can also add in your own instructions on top of this, which is what I hear a lot of people say they do.
I will call out Heather's asking for some personal experience offline outside of this training. So I don't know if Tara, if you have folks that you know are using it and want to get a brown bag together and they can harsh back and forth on what works and what doesn't work in social reading. It's outside the context of this training, but that question came in and I think it's a good one because the brainstorming over what worked and what didn't is definitely a good one.
So you mentioned somebody earlier was asking about websites and videos. Marcus, one of the things we don't allow you to annotate on top of those, but you could add a link here for that website so they could see that. You could add in video here. And so the students could watch the video. I've seen this done before. Watch the video, and then I'm going to give you a PDF of the transcript of that video, and then you annotate on top of that transcript. So you're not annotating the video itself, but you're annotating the transcript of the video.
David mentioned this earlier. Tara just mentioned it again. Please be careful with PDFs because it's really easy to go afoul of accessibility rules. Distance learning, Tara says distance learning can help with your PDF to make sure it's accessible. So proceed with caution with all PDFs because folks with screen readers sometimes struggle with them.
The other caution I will do with social reading is this is probably one of the few tools where I would actually say you really want to consider using groups. Especially depending on how many pages your PDF is. So let's say you have a class of 30 students and you have a 3-page PDF and you're asking every student to do 3 annotations. That's a lot of annotations on 3 pages of PDFs. So you want to kind of think through that. So if you got longer PDFs where the students can spread out those annotations throughout the PDF, fine, that's great. But if you're saying on a 3-page PDF, 30 students do each 3 annotations. That's 90 annotations over 3 pages. That's going to become really crowded on top of that that PDF very quickly as the students come in. So basically now I'm done. I can go ahead and click on continue to publishing and publish this. And now the students are able to come in and access the PDF and make highlights.
See, Seda had a question for you, David.
Oh, yeah, go right ahead, Seda.
Just to ask you, I was trying to, because like I said, baby steps, so I was integrating Canvas discussions with Harmonize. So what I did, and I'd like to see if you don't mind to show me, see if you work, what do you think? I open a discussion, regular, I'm going to open a discussion, okay? So on that box where they open discussion, I usually put a picture, whatever, a video, whatever we need. Like I said, it's a baby step to get used to. I know we have all this amount of things you just teach, but for baby steps, what I did, I create my video I want them to students to see. Then I went to the link I call the dog paw, the Harmonize, and I create the information. And then when it's like I have a discussion with the video and the link for Harmonize. So the students open like they are open a discussion, a regular discussion canvas. They look the video and then they click the link and then they go there. I found that way easier to check their work. And like I said, I was put like integrated, and then the students won't be having any problem with for myself too, because this the way you did. It's fine. It's okay too. It's of course, but for me, like I said, that's what I'm using and it's working. I create, like I said, just open a regular discussion board, whatever I want to put a video, picture, and then the harmonized link. They click and open for them. And also for grading, it's amazing. It's easier for me. But just
my brain has pulled up like 5 or 6 gotchas to that probably are outside of context of this.
Okay.
So I would say proceed with caution, but if it's working for you, fantastic.
Yeah.
But
like I said, for now, then what I'm going to do now, I'm going to start to explore this, the one you just said. But and work it, like I said, I was testing and it was wonderful. I didn't have any problem with the students. So
well, if you ever run into problems, let us know, because there's some gotchas there. But
okay.
But if it's working, I would say don't change it, because if it works, great.
Yeah. Okay.
So I only got 4 minutes. I wanted to quickly just kind of show a setup of an assignment. Marcus, were you going to say something?
No, I was going to address something in the comments, but it's more important that you show setup of something. So.
Okay, so I'm just going to come in here. I'm going to do my sandbox again. I'm just going to do, create an assignment, and we'll do Harmonize assignment. Week 5, whatever. And then we're going to come down here. Again, very similar to the other 2 times I've showed this. We're going to hit edit, put in your points, whatever you want those points to be. And then you're going to change the submission type, find Harmonize. And here we're going to do that individual assignment. And we'll put a due date here. And the one thing I want to say about this, and I kind of mentioned earlier, one of the nice parts about an assignment is you can do the multiple submission types. But another part about Harmonize the assignments that is nice is you can also do, you can have the brainstorm. You can see all of this is here as well. I'm going to click on configure this topic manually because you can actually do milestones as a part of your assignment. And so one of the neat concepts that I see used at different schools is, okay, I want to do an assignment. I want to turn on the auto grading because they're going to do a nursing journal. And I want the nurses to reflect on their clinical that they do every week. And they're going to do a 300-word journaling assignment every week. It's going to be private between me and the student. So it's an assignment. And now I'm going to, put my word count minimum on. And then I can come in here and do a due date every week of the semester. And now that's coming in as assignment. So not only do you get that multimodal aspect of the assignment with Harmonize, you also can kind of take advantage of some of our other tools like the milestones that you can actually make the grading process a lot easier. Because a lot of times with like a journaling assignments, you're not going in and reading and grading. You're just wanting to know that they're doing the journaling correct. So for an English class where you may have journaling, or for like a practical journaling assignment for like a nursing program, this is where this can come into play. And you can also, I've heard this being done for also like capstone projects. So I want you by this date, I need you to turn in your thesis statement. And then by this date, you're going to turn in your first draft. And then by this date, you're going to turn in your final assignment. So different ways that you can use a harmonized assignment outside of just layering one assignment. You can also layer the timing of everything.
Yeah, we are at the end of time. So David, yes, you can copy one harmonized rubric to another inside of the manual configuration. You can go dig into that in the instruction block, and you'll be able to pull it in. I had offered to hang out and talk about some low stakes, easy ways to do this, but I don't know if people have energy for that or not. So, and Tara, I don't know if you have another thing planned. I have a little bit of time, but I don't want to stress people out by dragging them into another 5-10 minutes of conversation. So I don't know how you want to approach that.
Maybe if you have a link to some ideas, or if you want to share a document you have, that could work. I know a lot of folks started at 8:30 with 2-hour blocks of Zoom sessions, so I'm sure they all want to go to lunch as well. But thank you so much, and we really appreciate all your time today.
Yeah, I'll follow up with something like that. If there are questions, we can hang out and take them. I see some folks have hands raised. So, Seda, is that an old hand raise or a new hand raise?
Oh, the old one. Sorry.
Okay. Kate, Kate,
Thank
did
you.
you?
Thank you. It was wonderful. Thank you.
No
Thank you,
problem.
Seda.
Yeah.
And Kate, did you?
Mine's a new one. So I added a rubric
Okay.
that I had, and then I chose to use the auto-generated one.
Okay.
And when I do the unlink rubric, it's not, it like looks like it's unlinked, but when I publish it and I go out of it, it reappears.
So you had a Canvas rubric, you attached it to the harmonized
Yes.
assignment, then you went into the harmonized assignment,
Yes.
generated one.
Yes.
That I'm going to have you email support at harmonizedlearning.com for to see what's going on, because I have never walked through those particular steps to see what's up. Because what you're doing should work of like unlink, tell Canvas to unlink the old assignment rubric and then relink the new one, and it should do the right thing. But now you're into deep Canvas land of, I actually don't know how to whack Canvas around and make that work. But so.
And Kay, if you go into where you're at now, you see this little question mark at the top. If you click on that, click on contact support. You don't even have to go to our support site. That will actually not only create the ticket, but will link your assignment to that ticket so we can go and look at that assignment.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Spoken like a man truly in support versus me, who I just have a email support. He's like, please don't do what Marcus just said.
Well, I appreciate you all for the wonderful webinar. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you,
everybody.
Kate.
Bye.
Thank you, Marcella.
Bye.
Marcella, I will let me get your email, because yes there's
if I can go back to
so, or actually let me do this. Let me give you the email, this because you cannot get into it, so you can't do what I just said. Send an email to support@harmonizedlearning.com and tell them your issue.
I'm sorry.
I'm putting it in the chat for you.
Oh, okay.
So just email them and tell them that you were in a training with us, and that it's not allowing you to go in to view Harmonize. And they could possibly give you some guidance on maybe which browser are you using? Is it Chrome or?
I'm using Chrome.
Chrome. So there might be an ad blocker there that you might be using that's stopping you from seeing harmonized There's so many possibilities, but they can investigate that and figure out why it's not taking you to that setup page.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no problem.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And I think that was any other questions, comments? Okay, everyone. Well, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Good luck on the new semester, and we'll see you later.